Chosen one, you were never losing while you were being forged in that quiet season. In fact, you just outed this person by doing this one thing, and there shooketh beyond measure. The wildest part is that your quiet persistence was the exact weapon that sent their world into a full-scale unraveling, proving that your existence alone is enough to defeat those who thought they could hold you back. There's a bridge. On one side, where you stand right now, your life as it has been. On the other side, everything that belongs to you, the love, the purpose, the peace, the version of you that is fully expressed, fully whole, fully arrived. You can see it. You have always been able to see it, which is part of what made the last season so disorienting, because you knew it was there. You were not delusional. You were not chasing something that did not exist. The other side was real. The bridge was real. But something was sitting in the middle of that bridge. A block, a wedge, an energetic obstruction engineered to look exactly like your own limitation. And because you are the kind of person who looks inward before pointing outward, you turned on yourself. Maybe I am not ready. Maybe I am too much. Maybe I am not enough. Maybe this is just my own karma catching up to me. No, stop. That narrative belongs in the trash. There has been a deliberate, organized, sustained effort to keep you off the other side of that bridge. Not because of anything you did, because of what you are, because of what you represent, because of what becomes possible for you and through you, for others, the moment you arrive in your fullness. Here is the first thing I am planting in this narrative, and you are going to need it later. The very fact that someone invested this much energy into keeping you exactly where you were is not the signature of an insignificant person being watched. You do not build a dam against a trickle. You build a dam against a river. Remember that. We will come back to it. This is not some shadowy stranger. This is someone who has a face you probably know. This is a person who sits inside a community, religious, spiritual, social, it does not matter the label, and who has built an entire identity around being seen as righteous, as the standard, as the gatekeeper of what divine favor is supposed to look like, and who is qualified to receive it. This person is vocal, influential within a particular circle, the kind of person others go to for wisdom, for validation, for the nod that says you are doing this right. The status of being the appointed one, the trusted authority, the chosen voice of the group. That status is not just a reputation, it is oxygen. And then there is you. You walked in, or you grew, or you simply refused to disappear, and you started representing something this person's entire system has no category for. You carry light that does not ask for permission. You connect to divine source in a way that does not require a specific framework, a specific approval, or a very specific checklist of what chosen tea is supposed to look like. You ask the questions that have been pre-decided should not be asked. You live in a way that makes the people around you feel free rather than managed. And people who feel free stop needing a gatekeeper. That is the problem. Right there. This is not a spiritual conflict. Underneath all the holy language, underneath all the righteous posturing, this is a power conflict. This is someone watching their circle drift toward the light you carry, and feeling, perhaps for the first time in a long time, genuinely irrelevant. And the ego, especially a religious ego, the most dangerous kind because it has divine authority available to borrow, does not sit with irrelevance quietly. Instead of examining the fear driving the reaction to you, instead of asking why your existence feels threatening, a decision was made. A decision to use the very spiritual tools that would be condemned in anyone else. Harm began moving in your direction, organized, intentional, dressed in the language of prayer, but saturated with the energy of a curse. Your name being spoken in spaces you were never invited into, not to bless you, but to bind you, to delay you, to engineer your downfall while the mask of devotion stayed perfectly in place for everyone watching. Here is the hypocrisy that should make your jaw drop. A truly righteous person does not do that. A genuine devotee of any sincere faith, Any tradition that truly centers love and divine justice does not do that. What is happening goes against every single thing being publicly claimed. The very darkness being preached against is the darkness being practiced. The costume is just very, very convincing, and it has been working until now. Direct observation was not possible. Too obvious, too much exposure for someone whose entire brand is built on righteous distance. So a go-between was installed. Someone closer to your world than you have realized. Not a person from your inner circle, not the people who know your real self. Someone more peripheral, a face from a shared past. Someone connected to a community you both once moved through. Someone you would greet warmly if you crossed paths, because that is who you are. You do not carry suspicion like a weapon. When someone says hello, you say hello back. Genuinely, without an agenda. That openness was used against you. This go-between reports back. Are you crumbling? Are you distracted? Is the interference working? Are the difficult seasons getting longer? Is your light dimming? Based on those reports, the approach gets adjusted. More is sent. New angles are tried. The operation is calibrated based on what comes back. If this message activated your knowing, hype this video to connect with more chosen ones on this journey. Here is something critical to hold. The operator is not as spiritually skilled as believed. There is an inflated perception of power and visibility into what is actually happening with you. What gets read is the surface, your activity, your external circumstances, the measurable facts of your life. What remains completely invisible is your interior, the real transformation happening inside you, the ascension underway in the quiet places where no one has been invited. The intelligence being gathered is incomplete. The picture being formed is wrong. Every decision made based on that wrong picture takes the operator further from understanding what is actually being dealt with. The compass is broken, and every move made with a broken compass leads further from the truth. This person is running surveillance on you while simultaneously preaching to others about loyalty, sacred trust, and divine community. A spy is being cultivated inside the very kind of trusting space that is publicly claimed to be protected. The people who follow this operator believe they are following someone devoted to honesty. What is actually running is an information operation against someone who is simply living authentically. That contradiction is a live wire. It is only a matter of time before someone in that circle brushes against it. Now I need to address something specific, something that was said about you, maybe not to your face, maybe not in any space you were present in, but it was said in private circles, to followers, to the people who look to this operator as the final word on who is real and who is not. You were called a false light. Maybe those exact words were used. Maybe it came dressed in softer language, a concern, a warning, a prayer offered on behalf of someone who has wandered off course. But the message underneath was identical. Do not trust this person. Do not follow this person. Do not let what this person carries influence you, because it is not real. It is performance. It is deception wearing a spiritual costume. Here is where the outing mechanism activates for the very first time, before the healing even finishes its deepest work. The people that warning was issued to, some of them came to you anyway, drawn by something they could not explain and could not argue themselves out of. Something in your presence felt more real than the controlled, pre-approved, carefully managed version of spirituality they had been living inside for so long. Those people came quietly, without making a statement, without announcing a departure. They simply moved toward the warmth you carry, and stayed because it rang true in a way they had been craving, without knowing how to name it. And that terrified the operator, because a false light does not do that. A false light does not draw sincere seekers toward deeper truth. A false light diminishes, controls, and extracts. What you do is the opposite of every one of those things. The people who were supposed to be pushed away by the warning were instead being confirmed in something they had already sensed. And the confirmation came not from anything you said to counter the accusation. It came simply from who you are. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing. Videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching Chosen Ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks, while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine trial today, risk-free, and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. When a warning does not land, it does not just fail quietly, it reverses. The person who issued it becomes the one whose judgment is now under question. Because if the warning was wrong about you, and the visible evidence of your impact on real people's lives is right there, undeniable, then what else has been wrong? That question is now living in the minds of people inside that circle, and it is not going anywhere. The go-between was reporting back that you seemed fine, that the difficult seasons were not sticking the way they used to, that you were recovering faster, that the light that was supposed to be dimming was somehow impossibly, infuriatingly getting stronger, that the people drawn to you were increasing, not decreasing, that your authentic expression of yourself was gaining ground rather than losing it, and the panic set in. Because what was happening, that neither the operator nor the go-between could see, was that you were ascending, not in the loud, cinematic way that a performance-based system expects elevation to look like. Quietly, steadily, in the private choices, in the moments nobody around you witnessed, in every instance where you chose your healing over your comfort, your truth over easy accommodation, your path over the temptation to put it down and rest in someone else's expectations of you. Think about what it looks like when someone earns genuine rank. There is a moment when the people around that person can sense everything earned and survived without a single word being spoken. The marks are not decorative, they are a record. Every mark represents something endured, something learned, something that permanently changed the person carrying it. You have been accumulating those marks, not in a way visible to anyone watching from the outside, but in the unseen ledger where the universe keeps its real accounts. Your rank has been climbing steadily. The operator sensed this shift without being able to name it, could feel the energetic field between you and this person changing, could sense that something assumed to be under control was moving in an entirely unauthorized direction, so the decision was made to escalate, and that escalation was the mistake that sealed everything. There is something about the specific nature of this operation that separates it from ordinary jealousy or ordinary competition, and that distinction matters. Ordinary jealousy does not organize. Ordinary competition does not invoke sacred language in private to engineer someone's downfall. Ordinary envy does not build a network of informants and calibrate a sustained interference campaign against someone being publicly pretended not to care about. What is being done here has a name in every tradition this person publicly claims to represent, and in every one of those traditions it is condemned. In the very texts used to challenge and dismiss you, those same pages read a little further, looked at more fully rather than selectively extracted, have something clear to say about people who use spiritual tools to harm others, who invoke divine authority to carry out personal vengeance, who speak blessings publicly while engineering curses privately. The double standard becomes undeniable once you see it clearly, your life gets held up as evidence of deviation. Your choices, your path, the way you move through the world, all of it positioned as proof that you are outside the acceptable lines. But ask yourself this: when did the rules being applied to you start applying to the one applying them? When does the self-declared guardian of divine order answer to that same order? When does the one preaching alignment have to account for the misalignment inside their own actions? The answer is now. That accounting is already in motion, not because you filed a complaint, not because you made a public declaration. The universe does not have a complaints department. It has laws, and those laws have been observing the operator's actions with the same precision and impartiality used to watch yours. The difference is that the universe does not operate with a broken compass. It sees exactly what has been happening. It always has. The decision was made to invest more, to go further, to bring in additional resources. This is the turning point of everything, because the moment of escalation was also the moment of overextension. Everything was poured into a campaign that was already failing against a target that had already moved beyond its reach. There's someone pouring water into a bucket with a crack in the bottom. The water keeps going. It does not accumulate. It does not build. It drains. But the crack is invisible to the one doing the pouring. All they can see is their own effort. So more gets poured, more drains, more resources get called in, more harm gets directed. The go-between gets sent more frequently, waiting for evidence that something is finally landing. The evidence never comes, because the crack in the bucket is you. You became the leak in their entire operation. Here is the one thing. Here is the single act that did it. Here is what outed this person so completely that the rubble of every plan is now sitting at their feet, unexplainable to them, irreversible. You healed the wound they needed. That is it. The whole thing. Not a dramatic confrontation, not a spiritual counterattack, not even a deliberate strategy aimed at neutralizing what was being sent. You started healing, genuinely, not for an audience, something real inside yourself, something that had lived in you since you were young, something from the season when you were inside that community and still forming, still figuring out the difference between what you had been told about yourself and what you actually were. Someone older was already watching you, already forming opinions, already trying to decide what container you belonged in, and growing quietly furious each time you kept expanding past the edges of it. You may not have connected the healing to the interference at all. You may have simply known that something needed to move, that you were done carrying what you had been carrying, that the time had arrived, and in making that choice, you removed the only hook the interference had ever used to reach you. Here is the mechanics of how that works. Energetic harm, spiritual interference, whatever name you give it or do not give it, can only attach where a corresponding wound exists. It needs a frequency match, something inside you that vibrates at the same low register as the harm being sent, something that opens and says, yes, enter here. I already believe this about myself. I already feel this way. The wound is the access point, and you closed it. When you healed, the harm that arrived found nothing to hold on to, no matching fear, no open doubt, and energy that finds no resistance does the only thing energy can do. It redirects. It returns to the source. It travels back to the hand that sent it, carrying the full original force of the intent behind it. The operator began receiving what had been aimed at you, and the reason everything suddenly felt heavier, more strained, more difficult to maintain, became inexplicable to someone who did not understand what you had quietly done. You did not curse anyone. You chose to cure yourself, and that choice triggered a law that no amount of public righteousness can override. The report came back, and the news was not good. You are getting closer to what was supposed to be prevented, not further from it. Your light is stronger, not weaker. Your connections are deepening, not severing. The thing that was supposed to be permanently delayed, your advancement, your union, your arrival into fullness, is apparently imminent. Everything was spent trying to stop it, and it did not stop. The operator is SHOOKETH, and the reason it goes deeper than frustration into genuine fear is this: declarations were made out loud, to followers, to the inner circle, to the people whose trust is the only real currency available, specific predictions about what would happen to you, about how your kind of light cannot sustain itself, about how the path you are walking leads to a specific and inevitable outcome. The declarations were confident, vocal, certain. None of it happened. You are still here, still rising, still drawing people to your authentic expression in a way that no managed, gatekeeper-controlled operation can manufacture or compete with. The people who witness those declarations are beginning to notice that the predicted outcome has not arrived. They are not saying it out loud yet, but something is shifting in how they are listening when the operator speaks. A new hesitation, a new private question, a very slight recalibration of trust. Something else is also happening that the operator did not anticipate. The people in that inner circle, the ones who are supposed to be completely insulated from your influence, fully committed to the version of reality being maintained, some of those people are quietly seeking things out. Not loudly, not as an act of rebellion, but privately, curiously, because they heard the warning about you and then encountered something real that you put into the world, a word, a moment of genuine expression, something unmistakably authentic, and something in them recognized it before the conditioned response could shut the recognition down. They felt the truth of it, and the truth that bypasses the intellect and lands in a deeper place cannot be unfelt. Now those people are carrying a question the operator never intended to plant in them. What if the thing we were warned about is actually the thing we have been missing all along? That is the real nightmare for the operator. Not a confrontation, not a public dispute, just you existing fully, and the people around this person finding their own way toward what you carry. That is the outcome everything was poured into preventing, and it is unfolding anyway. Because authentic light cannot be suppressed by pointing people away from it. You would need more light to do that. And performance, standing next to authenticity, always eventually shows where the seams are. Your situation is bigger than one antagonist and one campaign. What happened to you is part of a longer pattern. Understanding that pattern is how you make sure you never get caught inside it the same way again. There is a mold, a very specific shape that certain communities, certain systems, certain people with just enough influence and just enough unexamined pride have decided is the correct shape for a chosen person to take. The mold has instructions. Look like this, speak like this. Limit your expression of faith, devotion, and spiritual gift to the options we have pre-approved. Ask only the questions we have cleared for asking. Leave settled what we have decided is settled. Keep your light inside the container we designed for it, or we will declare that your light is not real. You never fit that mold, not once, and there was a season where you tried, where you showed up in the right places and said the right things, and genuinely attempted to compress yourself into a container that was always too small for everything you actually are, and it still did not work, because you could not turn off the questions. You could not unsee the gaps between what was being preached and what was being practiced. You could not stop noticing the people being excluded in the name of a God who, by every account worth believing, excluded no one. You were never a blind follower, not a mindless one anyway, not the kind who follows because following requires no courage. You were always the one asking, always the one curious, always the one who needed to genuinely understand something before giving it your full agreement. And that quality, that spark of sovereign thought, that refusal to outsource your conscience to someone else's authority, is the exact thing this person could not control about you, and what a gatekeeper cannot control, they eventually move to eliminate. But here is what was not accounted for. The mold was never this person's invention. It was a human construction built on a foundation of fear, and applied to concepts that were never meant to be contained within it. And you were made by something that does not build molds. You were made specifically to be the shape that breaks the containers that should never have been holding people in the first place. When the divine made you, the mold cracked, not by accident, as a declaration. The person spending all this time and energy trying to enforce that mold is now standing in front of a truth that cannot be avoided any longer. You cannot be contained. You were never going to be contained. Every effort to limit you was an investment with a guaranteed loss. And the universe has a way of making sure that kind of investment eventually gets collected in full. A convergence is coming, a union, something that once it arrives cannot be undone by any force operating from below its frequency. For some of you, this is a person, someone who has been moving toward you on their own journey, on their own timeline of preparation and healing. Someone who is going to enter your physical life and feel less like a new introduction and more like a recognition you cannot explain, like encountering a frequency you already know from somewhere deeper than memory. This person sees your actual interior, not the performed version, not the carefully managed exterior, and does not flinch, does not hand you a list of required changes, does not look at who you are and begin calculating what needs to be adjusted before they can stay. The operator knew this arrival was close. That is part of why the escalation happened when it did. The intelligence coming back through the go-between began suggesting that this convergence was becoming imminent, and the understanding was clear. Once two frequencies genuinely meant for each other make contact in the physical, the bond that forms cannot be severed from the outside. Everything was poured into reaching you before the arrival, closing you off before you could be found, making sure that when this energy showed up you would be too defended, too exhausted, too convinced that every incoming thing was a trap to be open enough to receive it. The operator did not get ahead of it. The convergence is already in motion on levels that no surface-level surveillance can detect. For others of you, the union is internal. The two halves of yourself, the one that has always known what it is, and the one that absorbed every word of dismissal ever aimed at it, are finally meeting. They are ending the war between the knowing and the doubting. This is the coming together of your clarity and your wound, your calling and your very human uncertainty about whether you are worthy of it. And when that internal union settles into place, what gets produced is a wholeness that looks like unshakable confidence from the outside and feels like profound, quiet peace from the inside. The kind of peace that interference cannot disturb, because there is nothing left inside you for it to grip. The entire effort against you included an attempt to make you so defended, so certain that every approaching thing was just another engineered disappointment, that you would close the door on your own blessing before it ever had the chance to arrive. The goal was to use your own protective instincts against you, to turn your discernment into a wall that kept out everything, including the things that were genuinely meant for you. You are discerning enough now to know the difference between a boundary and a wall. A boundary is intelligent. It evaluates. It keeps harm out and holds the door open for what is real. A wall keeps everything out without discrimination. Stay in the boundary. That is where your power lives. Karma is not a revenge mechanism. No individual administers it. No one keeps a personal score. It is a universal law, as reliable and impartial as gravity itself. Energy sent in a direction keeps moving until it meets its target or returns to the sender. What goes out returns, not always on a visible schedule, not always in a recognizable form, but it always returns, always. This person has poured sustained, organized, genuinely substantial energy into trying to pull you down, delay your purpose, separate you from what is meant for you, and rise by standing on what they imagined your collapse would provide them. That is a very specific kind of energetic debt, the kind that does not dissolve, the kind that compounds. And you have been building something on the entirely opposite end of that spectrum. Every wound you chose to move through, rather than hide from, Every moment you stayed in your truth when the easier path was to shrink for someone else's comfort. Every time you showed up as exactly who you are without requiring outside permission to do so. Every person whose path became a little clearer simply because you refused to disappear. Every question you asked that gave someone else the courage to ask theirs. All of that is real energy. All of it is in motion. All of it is returning. Now let me be specific about what the return looks like for someone in the operator's position, because it rarely looks like a dramatic public exposure. The quiet version is often far more complete. It looks like the go-between beginning to drift away, quietly questioning whether what they are participating in is something they can keep doing, stepping back from the circle without offering a full explanation. And as that stream of intelligence dries up, the operator becomes even more blind to what is actually happening with you. Every decision made going forward is even less calibrated than before. The compass was already broken. Now the compass is gone entirely. It looks like the declarations this person made about you sitting awkwardly in the memories of the people who witnessed them, getting heavier with each passing season in which the predicted outcome simply does not materialize. The longer you thrive, the more those declarations become evidence against the one who made them. No one in that circle is going to raise it directly, but they are going to remember, and memory quietly redistributes where trust gets placed. It looks like the outward-facing platform beginning to feel different, not dramatically, not all at once, but in the subtle way that things shift when the energy sustaining them is being drained from the inside. Words that used to land with authority start requiring more effort to deliver. The people who used to receive them without question start receiving them with a slight pause they cannot fully explain. The foundation is still standing, but something underneath it is no longer solid, and the structure above is beginning to feel it. The interference was never going to win, not because divine protection works like a security system with a visible perimeter, but because the laws governing this reality make no exceptions for people who weaponize sacred language to carry out personal agendas. The law is the law. It does not care about reputation. It does not distinguish between how convincing the performance is and what is actually happening underneath it. It tracks what was put into motion and where it was directed. Harm was put into motion. It is finding its way back to the source. Do not speak on it. Do not announce it. Do not position yourself as the reason it is happening. Just continue forward and let the universe do what it does with perfect precision and without requiring your supervision. The block is dissolving. The bridge ahead of you is clearing. Everything on the other side, the love, the purpose, the union, the wholeness, the version of your life that has always been yours, is no longer a horizon. It is the next step. The convergence is in motion. The marks are being recorded in the ledger where real accounts are kept. The karma is completing its return, and the person who built the obstruction is standing in the wreckage of every plan, unable to understand what went wrong, because the answer is inside your healing and has always been beyond their reach, but it has never been beyond yours. You have always had access to your own interior. That is where this was always going to be decided, not in any external confrontation, not in any public arena. A chosen one, who was told in every possible way that who they were was wrong, was outside the lines, was the wrong shape for the container. That chosen one chose to go inside, to look honestly at what was there, and to heal it rather than hide it. And in making that choice, that person became something that no external interference could follow, something that reflects harm back to its source, something that draws what is real toward it the way a frequency draws its match. You are that. You built that. Without a battle plan, without a declaration, without even fully understanding what was being constructed while you were doing it, you just kept healing. And that one thing, that single, quiet, non-cinematic choice to keep becoming yourself, is what outed the person who believed they had you contained. It collapsed the operation they built against you. It set into irreversible motion the arrival of everything they were working to prevent. The block is the bridge now. Every piece of resistance you moved through on the way here, the discernment, the endurance, the bedrock knowledge of who you are that only forms under the pressure of having that knowledge tested, all of it is the material you are walking across. You arrive on the other side of this not despite what you went through, but because of it. Forged, marked, rooted, ready, chosen one. The crown was never lost. It was being forged in the fire of everything thrown at you, in the heat of every disruption, every engineered setback. Every moment you chose to keep going when stopping would have been completely understandable. The forging is done. The crown is ready. Now go put it on.